Our message affirmation this week is, I am free to live as God created me. I got this from reading the Daily Word, the Unity Daily Word. A lot of you should be familiar with that. And as I was reading that this week, I thought this is so perfect, a wonderful thing to share that we don't think about a lot. And it's important, very important, especially as New Thought students, for all of us to know and understand that we all have divine potential. We're all here for a specific reason, and we don't necessarily know that, and sometimes that's a good thing, because if you knew, then that would take all the mystery and the fun out of life. But we all have a divine potential to live up to. And as children of God, we were created to live to this divine potential. And it's good to know that we are free to live as God created us. The scripture lesson that came with this particular daily word message was from the book of Galatians, and it noted, "For freedom, Christ has set us free." And I thought that would be an interesting thing to talk about, because of course, as we live in our modern day world, we all think of freedom as a different thing. And certainly living here in these United States of America, we think of the freedoms that we have. But in this context, when we think of ourselves as New Thought students and all the wonderful things that we learn, think of how freeing that can be. We know that we have our laws of prosperity, and those free us from the worry and concern about financial needs. It was an interesting thing. These last couple months, I had moved and done a lot of things, and I was personally way over budget on a lot of things. And so, unfortunately, I did what people do sometimes, is I held back on my tithing a little bit. I thought, and I'll catch up. I'll catch up next week. And it got to the point where it was a couple weeks out. And Thursday, I was at the office and had looked into a business account, and a check had been returned, and the account was way overdrawn, and it wasn't supposed to be according to what was in the system. And so I got very excited and upset, and was looking in, and it turned out some electronic deductions hadn't been posted. So here we were sending payments all over town, and I was like terrified, thinking, "Oh my gosh, what happened? What happened?" And so we scraped through, and it's Monday is our payroll, and so I was really nervous, and so we thought, okay, we'll do this and this, and we were barely going to cover the payroll, which was good, except that I wasn't going to get paid. And anybody who's a small business owner knows that that's just what happens. Is sometimes you're the last one to get paid, and that was a big challenge though, because that hasn't happened in years for me. And so I had to get a little cash to take care of some things we were doing in the office, and I'd gone to the bank, and as I was standing there on the line, it occurred to me, I have to go and make up my tithing. I'm blocking my own prosperity. And so, I rushed back to the office and picked up the checks that I'd been holding on to and put them in. And the next morning I went to work and was, trying to figure out this mess. And then, lo and behold, I found that there had been a check entered twice, way back in March of 2012. So all this cash was sitting there. So then it all reconciled out, and of course I did get to pay myself. And I just had to stand back and say, wow, it is so interesting how rapidly this prosperity principle works. And like I say all the time, we're all going to have the hills and valleys, and sometimes it's a longer process, but it was amazing. I was freed. I was made free because of these prosperity things. So I was freed from the worry and concern of any financial challenges. And so in that way, I was made free. And also, as I mentioned, I'd recently moved, and there's some people on top of me who have a little girl who I think is trying out to be an Olympian. She's with the running, jumping, pole vaulting, I think a little bit of the shot put. And now I'm pretty much convinced she's also taking up tap dancing. And so yesterday I was home getting ready for the potluck, and I think she had a little visitor over because there was screaming and yelling. And at times I would get so frustrated, think, how can they be so rude? And then I would stop and think, it doesn't matter. And it was so much easier to stop and say, oh, it doesn't matter, than the times that I was frustrated and angry about it. It takes up so much energy, and you're not freed. So we know, again, with our New Thought principles and this idea of, live and let live, and think positive and give the other person, that frees us from the burden of being angry or upset or challenged. So again, this is another great example. And I'm sure if you think about it in your life, in your daily life, we all have them, all the ways that utilizing our new thought principles, they do set us free. So when we think about this scripture lesson from the book of Galatians, for freedom, Christ has set us free. So we have all these freeing things. And the great thing about it is there's no expectation that we have to do anything. We're being freed to be free, which is wonderful because we read a lot too in the scriptures about different kings who at different times let certain races of people free, but there was always an obligation. You're free, but then you got to go do this or you got to do that. So it's wonderful to know that Christ said, you're free just to be free. So that's very, very empowering to know that. Our question this week, and as I talked earlier about our divine potential, is, do I accept my divine potential? And I thought that might seem a little overwhelming. Oh my God, my divine potential. That's, what is that? Do I have to go, carve a mountain or something? So just to clarify that, do I enjoy the fullness of life? Because that is the potential that you have. And then also ask yourself, I should have put this in there, but a big question is, do I enjoy the freedom of the power that I get from our new thought principles? Am I free from worrying about financial issues? Am I free from worrying about my health issues? Am I free from worrying about challenging relationships? Or am I embracing my new thought principles and knowing that I am freed from that? I'm freed from that. Christ freed me for the sole purpose of being free. So as you go through the week, ask yourself this question. And if you find that you're challenged, if you say, well, you know what, I'm not accepting this because this or this or this is in the way, then know that, you know what, that's a wall that you need to knock out. Or as I mentioned a lot of times, we don't pound your head against a wall thinking that there's going to be a door there when you can stand back and look, and probably a few feet down, there's the actual door to go through, and that's a lot easier. So as you ask yourself this question through the week, also remember the good news. And the good news is that we can all answer the call to be our very best self. It's within us all. We can all answer that call to be our very best self. And as New Thought students, we know we all have the tools. God created us to be free and to enjoy the fullness of life. And that is a wonderful and empowering thing. There are many faiths who, have this very rigid outlook on life, that we are created to, be suffering, and, we have to be challenged at every step of the way in order to be good Christians. And the reality is, if you look in the Bible, if you read the scriptures, that really isn't what God intended for us. He didn't say, I can't wait to create this race of people so I can make them as miserable as they can possibly be, and that's going to give me so much joy. I don't know who would have that much power and do that. So, just from a logical point of view, it doesn't make sense. So as you're going through the week, remember that God created us to be free and to enjoy the fullness of life, to learn, to grow, and to evolve into our own divine potential. And your divine potential is to be happy. So when you hear that, don't feel overwhelmed about the divine potential. It's this big thing I have to do, because everything we do matters. So your divine potential is to be happy and to live your life. If you get to that place where you're not enjoying the fullness of life, this is when you need to stop and stand back. And take that time, meditate, say a prayer to God, and reflect back on these new thought principles that we learn as we're here every Sunday, and through the different readings and things that we experience as New Thought students, that we are meant to have lives of fullness. So if you're not, that means that somehow you're blocking your flow. Just like I mentioned, I was blocking my prosperity, or I was blocking my own happiness by being angry about something that I had no control over. So stand back. If you're not experiencing the fullness of life, what is blocking that? What's keeping you from enjoying this freedom that Christ has given you? Get that thing out of the way and enjoy that freedom and enjoy the fullness of life.